Imagine the most dangerous whaling ship on Earth, charging through the oceans. Its crew armed with weapons so brutal that even the most intelligent and empathetic creatures in the sea stood no chance. In 1979, this ship had a name that sent shivers through conservationists everywhere. It was called the Sierra, a pirate whaling vessel that had already slaughtered more than 25,000 whales across the Atlantic Ocean. The way it hunted was horrifying. Whales, known for their empathy, would rush to help a wounded companion, and the hunters twisted this compassion into a deadly trap. They used a monstrous harpoon gun weighing over 2 tons. When the harpoon struck, it exploded like a bomb inside the whale's body, leaving it bleeding, screaming in agony. And when other whales came to its aid, they were killed too. The Sierra became so infamous that ports around the world began banning it. Arrest warrants chased its crew wherever they sailed, but still it continued its bloody rampage. Then came the day that would change everything. On a July afternoon in 1979, just 200 miles off the Portuguese coast, the Sierra's crew thought it would be another day of slaughter. But suddenly, out of nowhere, a ship rammed into them at full speed. Before they could recover, it turned and hit them again. This was no accident. The attacker was the Sea Shepherd, led by a man who would become one of the most feared and celebrated environmental activists of our time, Captain Paul Watson. As bullets from the Sierra's captain's rifle cracked across the waves, Watson's mission was already accomplished. He had crippled the ship permanently. Hours later, the Portuguese Navy arrived and arrested him. But when no one stepped forward to even claim ownership of the Sierra, Watson was set free. The crippled vessel limped into Lisbon, only to be sunk for good a year later by mines planted by Watson's allies. This was the beginning of a lifelong war that one man would wage against the destruction of ocean life. Who was this man, ready to risk everything for creatures most people would never even see? Born in Canada in 1950, Paul Watson had a harsh childhood. His father was abusive, and he lost his mother young, but he found solace in the company of animals. As a boy, his best friend was a wild beaver he named Bucky. When Bucky died in a cruel trap, young Watson took to roaming the forests alone, destroying animal traps wherever he found them. By the age of 11, he had already been shocked by the brutality of a seal hunt, and at 16, he ran away from home, finding like-minded activists in Vancouver. By 19, Watson was already part of something historic. In Alaska, nuclear tests threatened to annihilate sea otters and devastate the ecosystem. To stop them, a small group of activists formed the Don't Make a Wave Committee, renting old fishing boats to sail directly into the testing zone. Their idea was audacious. If they placed themselves at the site, surely the government could not risk detonating a bomb. Although the test went off elsewhere, killing thousands of fish and otters, the protest gained worldwide attention. America called off future nuclear tests. That small committee soon evolved into a name that would become legendary Greenpeace, and Paul Watson was one of its founding members. But it was whales that truly captured Watson's heart. In 1973, Canadian biologist Paul Spong revealed just how intelligent these giants really were. Orcas at the Vancouver Aquarium displayed behaviors so complex that it seemed they were running experiments on the scientists rather than the other way around. They played mind games, deliberately giving wrong answers. Their language, their culture, even their compassion whales turned out to be far more advanced than anyone had imagined. And yet, they were being massacred by the thousands. For Watson, the turning point came when he looked into the eye of a dying whale harpooned by Soviet hunters. The whale could have killed him and his crew, but instead, even in its final moments, it showed restraint, almost an understanding. That look became the defining moment of Watson's life. He decided then and there that he would dedicate his life to saving them. But while Greenpeace sought to bear witness, documenting and exposing wrongdoing, Watson wanted action. He believed that only direct confrontation could stop the slaughter. And so, when Greenpeace ousted him for breaking their strict code of nonviolence, Watson struck out on his own. He formed Sea Shepherd, and with his black pirate flag logo, he declared war on whalers. From then on, it was no longer about protest. It was about shutting whaling ships down. He rammed them, sank them, and exposed them with daring missions that made headlines around the world. Some called him an eco-terrorist. Others hailed him as a hero. But no one could deny that he was unlike anyone else on Earth. Before we dive into the most dangerous battles he fought on the high seas, let me pause and ask you something important. If stories like this inspire you, if you believe one person can change the world, then you don't miss what is coming next. Hit that subscribe button right now, because the story ahead will shock you even more. The late 70s and 80s became the stage for Paul Watson's most audacious campaigns. Unlike Greenpeace, which waved placards and gathered evidence, Sea Shepherd fought fire with fire. If a ship was killing whales, Watson's crew rammed it. If a processing plant was turning whales into dog food, they broke in with hammers and acid. When Japan, Iceland, and the Soviet Union hid behind the excuse of scientific research while massacring whales, Watson exposed their lies. He was fearless, sneaking into Soviet facilities where discovery could have meant torture or death, outwitting the KGB and Navy patrols. And yet, for all the risk, his approach worked. In the 80s, Watson and his team literally sank whaling ships in Iceland, costing the industry millions. He brought Hollywood celebrities like Brigitte Bardot onto the ice to pose with baby seals, turning brutal hunts into international scandals. By 1986, relentless pressure forced the International Whaling Commission to ban commercial whaling. The ban was historic, but Japan and Iceland found loopholes, hiding behind the claim of research. In reality, tens of thousands of whales were still being killed. Watson refused to let it slide. By the 2000s, his war shifted south to the icy waters of Antarctica. For centuries, this had been the Bay of Whales, where giants once thrived in huge numbers. But Japanese ships returned year after year, their harpoon vessels delivering carcasses to a giant factory ship called Nishin Maru. Painted in bold letters across its side was the word research. But the truth was obvious. This was commercial whaling dressed up as science. Watson responded by throwing stink bombs of butyric acid and firing harmless smoke bombs onto their decks, disrupting the hunt and forcing ships to retreat. Every season became a showdown between Japan's whalers and Sea Shepherd's fleet. The battles grew so intense, they were turned into a hit TV series, Whale Wars, broadcast on National Geographic. Suddenly, millions around the world were watching Watson's black-flagged ships clash with Japanese whalers in Antarctica. His notoriety grew, and so did the danger. In 2010, a new chapter of this war turned deadly serious. Sea Shepherd had acquired the 80 Gill, the fastest speedboat in the world, sleek and futuristic. It was parked in front of a Japanese vessel when the whaling ship refused to change course and plowed straight through it. The 80 Gill split in two and sank. Miraculously, the crew survived, but Japan retaliated with lawsuits, arrest warrants, and extradition demands. Soon, Watson was branded a pirate by American courts and hunted by Interpol with a red notice, a designation usually reserved for murderers and war criminals. Watson became an international fugitive, hiding at sea for months at a time, slipping across borders, even losing his Canadian passport. Governments turned their backs, but his supporters never did. Despite the labels, he always insisted that in more than 3 decades of battle, he never harmed a single human being. His war was only against the machines of destruction. Even in his 70s, Watson refuses to stop. In 2022, he was forced out of Sea Shepherd itself after disagreeing with its new direction. But instead of fading into retirement, he launched a new group, the Captain Paul Watson Foundation. By 2024, he was once again at sea, still fighting for whales. That July, police stormed his ship in Greenland and arrested him, reviving a decade-old extradition demand from Japan. Protests erupted across cities worldwide, people demanding his release. After 5 months in jail, Denmark finally refused Japan's request and set him free. Now 74 years old, Watson says the war is not over. In fact, he has already announced another campaign for June 2025. His message is as stark as ever. Humanity behaves like a virus, destroying its own host, the Earth. Whales, he insists, are more intelligent than humans, capable of compassion, culture, and language. Killing them is nothing less than murder. Without them, without phytoplankton that depend on them, without oceans that balance our atmosphere, life itself will collapse. And here's the part that should make all of us stop and think. The United Nations warns that 70% of the world's major fisheries are already exhausted or collapsing. By 2048, the entire fishing industry could collapse completely. Industrial greed is pushing us to the edge. And yet there are still people like Paul Watson who refuse to give up, who risk everything to hold back the tide. Friends, now it's your turn. What do you think of Paul Watson's methods? Was he right to ram ships and sink whalers? Or did he go too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this story isn't just about whales, it's about us. It is about whether humanity can wake up before it destroys the very ocean that gives us life. One man has already proven that a single individual can change the fate of thousands of whales. Maybe you too carry that courage inside you.